fact, in this most recent election, we flipped a total of 10 Republican-held seats this year, and we were able to hold some tough districts as well. And I think it was in part because all of our members and all of our candidates focused on quality of life issues, lowering gas prices, lowering grocery prices, lowering the cost of housing, which is a challenge that impacts Americans all across the country.
There has been questions about whether Mike Johnson is at risk of not being the Speaker of the House in a couple of weeks. What do you think?
I think that's a real risk, and there will be no Democrats available to save him or the extreme MAGA Republicans from themselves based on the breaching of a bipartisan agreement that reflected priorities that were good for the American people. We're going to have to continue to work on several of those as we move forward, including plussing up resources for community health centers, which is a bipartisan priority that Republicans walked away from, even though it benefits people in urban America, rural America, small town America, the heartland of America, as well as Appalachia. But we'll have the ability.
The Republican Party is in complete disarray. And it's not only Donald Trump who is seeing disaster strike before his presidency even begins. Before Mike Johnson is about to become Speaker for the second time, he is already having some worries about his position. And I don't even know if I should say that Mike Johnson is about to become Speaker for the second time, because there's a bit of uncertainty there. An uncertainty that is making both Donald Trump and Mike Johnson upset, because it just shows how disastrous the Republican Party is and how incapable of governing they are. And Hakeem Jeffries jumped at the opportunity to rub that in and call it out in a clip and a takedown. I can't wait to check out. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way. And it really means the world to me. Now let's get into this interview with Hakeem Jeffries talking about how he's not going to save Mike Johnson. And it's making him pretty upset.
Hello, Leader Jeffries. Great to see you. I just wanted to start by asking you, I just gave my take on what a chaotic, hectic week this was, where Democrats essentially saved the day. But what did you learn from this week?
Well, it was important for the American people to see the beginnings of what is going to take place over the next 2 to 4 years, which is chaos, dysfunction, and extremism, and a Republican Party that is not really interested in helping out working class Americans, but is really determined to enact massive tax cuts for the wealthy, the well-off, and well-connected corporations. That was the centerpiece of Donald Trump and Elon Musk's demand with respect to recklessly trying to suspend the debt ceiling and secure a $4 to $5 trillion blank check. Thankfully, we stopped that from happening.
It's been quite a week, and one of the things I talked about a bit here, Leader Jeffries, is that Elon Musk, we saw Elon Musk take kind of a powerful role in his power over the Republican caucus. That surprised me, I guess. Maybe it shouldn't have. Did anything about how he wielded his power surprise you?
Well, many people throughout the Capitol are saying that he has perhaps emerged as the leader of the Republican Party moving forward. And we'll have to see how that plays itself out over the next few weeks, next few months, and next few years. As House Democrats, our position is simple. There are three things that we should all be focused on in connection with the American people. First, lowering costs. Second, bigger paychecks for hardworking American taxpayers. And third, securing safer communities. That's going to be our North Star moving forward. And we'll see whether the incoming administration is prepared to join us on behalf of the American people.
I know there were some, I listed a number of them, pieces that were in this bipartisan agreement that were stripped out of the bill before it went to the Senate. Some of them were saved in the Senate. But because of this whole chaos of this week, there has been questions about whether Mike Johnson is at risk of not being the Speaker of the House in a couple of weeks. What do you think?
I think that's a real risk, and there will be no Democrats available to save him or the extreme MAGA Republicans from themselves based on the breaching of a bipartisan agreement that reflected priorities that were good for the American people. We're going to have to continue to work on several of those as we move forward, including plussing up resources for community health centers, which is a bipartisan priority that Republicans walked away from, even though it benefits people in urban America, rural America, small town America, the heartland of America, as well as Appalachia. But we'll have the ability to wage those battles over the next few weeks and the next few months, given that this is only a short-term continuing resolution that will expire on March 14th.
And that means that vote, just for everybody paying attention at home, is going to come up again. There's going to be a need to raise the debt limit to keep the government funding. I just listed how there were 170 Republicans, or 100 more than that, who voted for this bill, even though Trump was threatening primary opponents. Do you think, you've been through this before, you were in the minority the last time, not in as powerful a position. Do you think he's lost a hold on the caucus that he had before?
That's an open question, and it will be very interesting, but that certainly is one of the narratives that perhaps has emerged over the last few days in terms of what we saw in the Congress, a willingness by some of my colleagues, including far-right extremists in the House Republican Conference, to defy Donald Trump around the debt ceiling in particular, which means that notwithstanding their plan to stick the American people with trillions of dollars of debt in order to jam tax cuts down the throats of the American people, in part by cutting Social Security and Medicare benefits, that Democrats will remain united in pushing back against that. And Donald Trump is going to have to find the votes for that reckless scheme amongst House Republicans and House Republicans alone.
Is there anything from navigating being in the minority during a first term that you're applying now as leader of the caucus?
It's important for us to stay calm, stay present at all times, because the margin is going to be extremely narrow during the first 100 days of the new administration. The margins will be about 217 Republicans and 215 Democrats. Even at full strength, House Republicans will be at 220, will be at 215. That's the narrowest majority of any party since 1931. And so we've got to stay calm through all of the turbulence that the Republicans are going to try to visit on the American people in order to defend hardworking American taxpayers. We have to be present and in Washington to make sure that our leverage can shine through on behalf of the American people. And we, of course, have to stay unified in fighting for the things that matter, which first and foremost is to lower costs for everyday Americans, for working class Americans, and for middle class Americans.
One of the pieces that came out of the November election that I don't think has got enough attention is that Democratic House candidates outperformed the top of the ticket, which I think, as we're looking for bright lines or lessons to be learned, is an important thing to reflect on. Why do you think that was? And how does that inform how you and other party leaders are thinking about the best messengers for the party moving forward?
We have incredible members of the House Democratic Caucus who are returning, who are in battleground districts all across the nation, and we're overwhelmingly successful. We have some red to blue candidates who were able to defeat Republicans. In fact, in this most recent election, we flipped a total of 10 Republican-held seats this year, and we were able to hold some tough districts as well. And I think it was in part because all of our members and all of our candidates focused on quality of life issues, lowering gas prices, lowering grocery prices, lowering the cost of housing, which is a challenge that impacts Americans all across the country. And we're able to overcome a national environment that was more adverse than what we expected. It's also important to note, Jen, as you know, that in the last Trump presidency, when the former president took office in January of 2017, there were 241 Republicans and only 194 Democrats. So the margin this time is going to be entirely different. And that's why we're going to fight as hard as we can to deliver real results for the American people and protect the things that matter, like Social Security, Medicare, and of course, a woman's freedom to make her own reproductive health care decisions.
I think people are really happy to hear all of those priorities. So you have this new book. I mentioned it at the top. I have it for my kids. It's called The ABCs of Democracy. It's based on the first speech you gave as Democratic leader, which people can pop up and find. We'll repost it too. When you went letter by letter through the alphabet, I'm sure that took planning, to talk about what the Democratic Party stands for. It's quite relevant now, and it was a memorable speech. But tell us what you hope young people get out of this book.
Well, it's an illustrated book for people of all ages, and certainly I'm hopeful that younger Americans will have an opportunity to process that elections come and elections go, presidents come and presidents go, but there are American values, American institutions, American ideas that have endured over a 248-year period that have made this country the greatest democracy in the history of the world. I was in part inspired by my younger days growing up on Schoolhouse Rock, and just thought that these are principles that we have to continue to bring to life for the next generation of Americans.
Averting a government shutdown was one thing to make sure that the government is funded and people are paid through the holidays and at some of the busiest travel time of the year. We have TSA agents that national parks that people plan to visit are open, that VA hospitals are open during the winter. Yes, that was important. We needed to get it done. But the next time that the GOP is in a bit of a scuffle, that they are in disarray, that they can't figure out how to govern, and it's not going to directly impact people in the same way the government shutdown would then. No, I don't think that we need to jump in and save them. Democrats don't need to jump in and save Mike Johnson. I don't know why we would. I don't know who is recommending we should. And we're not going to. Hakeem Jeffries just made it clear MAGA has to continue to show the American people that they don't know how to govern, and they're doing a really good job of that right now. So maybe we should just allow themselves to continue to shoot their own feet. They're failing. They are struggling. And the Republican infighting is only good for us. They are a party that only knows how to stop legislation from being passed, to interfere, and to obstruct. And now that they're in charge, that's all they can do to themselves, so let them continue to do it. Donald Trump promised to lower prices. Try to make it happen. You can't, you are not going to, and in fact, it's only going to have the opposite result. One, that we will talk about every single day on this show. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button. You can leave a like on this video. And if you're stuck around at the end, you can drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.